We've put ourselves on trial these past 10 days. What began on Rosh Hashanah ends tonight. At sundown, the verdict will be sealed. Unetana tokef k'tushat hayom. Let us proclaim the sacred power of this day. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. No one likes to be judged. No one ever liked it. But it is especially contrary to the spirit of our age. We prefer positive reinforcement. Nowadays, to judge someone is often insulting. Don't be so judgmental, we say. By which we mean, stop criticizing and give me some compliments. But we face the truth about ourselves today. We put ourselves on the stand as we consider the evidence against us. And for 10 days, we sit here in contemplation, reflection, and prayer as we cross-examine ourselves. And if we have not found ourselves to be wanting, if there is no evidence that prompts us to change our behavior, then we have created a kangaroo court. For this trial to be real, we must produce evidence that is real. Like the defendant who maintained his innocence during the entire 10 days of his trial, on the 10th day he pled guilty. The judge was angry. Why didn't you plead guilty right at the start and save us all this time, trouble, and cost? Honest judge, the defendant pleaded. I was convinced I was innocent until I heard all the evidence against me. We are convinced we are innocent until we place all the evidence against us. These 10 days of trial are intended to change our headstrong views that we are blameless and that everyone else is at fault. Is your wife the only one to blame for the breakdown of your marriage? Asked the marriage counselor. No, the husband responded. She's only 50% to blame. The other 50% is her mother. Today we tell the truth, if only to ourselves. Today we confess the truth, if only to our Maker. I have sinned. I have transgressed. I am sorry. I will do better this year. Have mercy upon me. How should we assess our behavior? What are the criteria? What are the standards we should apply? We read in the Talmud, at the end of our days, when we are brought to final judgment, we will be asked the following questions. 1. Nasata v'natata be'emunah. Have you conducted your business affairs with integrity? 2. Kavata itim laTorah. Did you set aside fixed time for learning? 3. Asakta bepriya urvia. Did you engage in procreation? 4. Tzipita liyeshua. Did you hope for salvation? These are the questions that we will be asked at the final verdict, and so these are the questions we should ask ourselves now. 1. Nasata v'natata be'emunah. Did we conduct our business affairs be'emunah? Emunah is a difficult word to translate. It means something like faithfully, loyally, honestly, with integrity. Were we honest in our business affairs? Did we act with integrity? This is the first question that the heavenly tribunal asks. It is not, did you believe in God? How often did you pray? How observant were you? Or even how charitable you were? Rather, did you have integrity on money matters? Integrity on financial matters is the first test because money plays such a central role in our lives. It affects everything, from our relationship with our partners, parents, and posterity, to our sense of personal security and well-being. Adults spend much of our days thinking about or spending money. And when we are not making or spending money, we are often thinking about making or spending money. The Talmud doesn't ask how much money we made. Jews aren't conflicted about money. If we can, we should make a lot and live well. It's not that money is everything, far from it. But we are commanded to enjoy the pleasures of the world, and according to our sages, will be reprimanded in the world to come for all of the legitimate pleasures that we have denied ourselves in this world. Poverty is no virtue. Affluence beats poverty every time. I have never heard the poor praise poverty. But what preoccupied the sages is not how much we make, but how we make it and how we spend it. And by using the word emunah, the sages seek to convey an even more exacting standard than simply following the law. Did you have integrity on financial matters? When the cashier at the market undercharged you, did you point that out? When you billed your client, did you bill them for work that you did not do or for time that you did not spend? When you performed the physical, did you send your patient to do unnecessary medical tests, figuring who knows and who cares anyway, someone else pays for it? Did you ask for dues relief from the synagogue? When you didn't really need it, you just preferred not to pay? Did you shave a percentage here or there at the bank? Did you manipulate the LIBOR rate? Assuming that hardly anyone knows what that is, and those few in the world who do know will collaborate with you in the private pact of preening percentage point pretenders. Dishonesty in financial matters, or even lack of integrity, can wreak havoc on our relationships. I have seen families disintegrate when dividing the estate of their parents. I have seen marriages decimated by financial conflict. And even at the end, even when separating and moving on, often couples use financial assets against each other, leveraging money against all of the years of love that they shared. Do your best to act with integrity on financial matters. It is not only a question of what is lawfully yours. Act with emunah, with faith, that doing the right thing is the best course. If you have enough, sometimes foregoing even what is rightfully yours is the better course. If you have enough, share with others. If you have enough, you have enough. You don't need to shave points at the margins. If you have enough, you might consider not fighting about the $500 chandelier at the apartment closing. To have integrity in financial matters is not only a question of financial reward. Not only is it often good for business anyway, it's also the reward itself. We do the right thing simply because it is the right thing. Because we are inspired to honesty and enthusiastic for integrity. Virtue is the reward for virtue. They don't teach that in business school, but that's the first lesson here. Rabbi Shimon said there are 3 crowns, 3 spheres of excellence: academic excellence, religious excellence, and executive and political excellence. But the crown of a good name, excellence in reputation, our integrity, exceeds them all. May it be that when all the evidence is examined and we face our final judgment, that it can be said about us, nasata v'natata be'emunah. We had integrity in financial matters. 2, kavata itim letorah. Did you set aside fixed time for Torah? This is the second question that the heavenly court will ask at the end of our days because it flows from the first. We are preoccupied with making a living. It is the nature of life. We must devote so much time and so much energy to this essential that it is easy to neglect other matters that are important as well. And therefore, set aside time for study. Set aside time for studying Judaism. Set aside time for studying anything. Set aside time with discipline. It should be fixed time, the same time, every day or every few days or every week, when we wake up, at lunch, when we come home, on the weekend. It's not how much time that is important, although that too is relevant. The sages didn't say set aside an hour a day or 3 hours a week. It is that we set aside fixed time, even 5 minutes of philosophy or 10 minutes of Torah. Once a day, once every few days, once a week, online, offline, inline, on airlines, at the shoreline, after deadlines, whatever timeline makes sense for you. There's something in the Jewish calendar called Shabbat. That's often a really good time that is fixed. It happens every week. You may want to do some Torah, a little bit of Judaism on that day when most of us are not working at our vocations. Once a month, at the same time, every month, every 2 months, try coming to synagogue. Or observe at home. Say to yourselves, every first Friday of the month, our family gathers for Shabbat at synagogue, at home, or both. Say to yourself, I'm alone in the city. I no longer have child-rearing responsibilities. I'm going to synagogue on the first Shabbat of the month where I will meet my friends, and then we will have Shabbat dinner together. If you do it every week, even better. Why the cynicism? I know a lot of people who set aside fixed times for doing what is important to them. For example, I know a lot of people who set aside fixed times for exercise. You can find them at the gym, at the same place, at the same time, every time. How come they can find fixed time for the gym but can't find fixed time for the Jews? They can find fixed time for gymnastics but can't find fixed time for gymnastics. Why do people even exercise in the first place? They want to stay in physical shape. They realize that staying physically strong and healthy is connected to good mental health and to a good life. So why do they not exercise their Jewish muscles? You think that when it comes to your body, you must exercise to avoid decay, but when it comes to your Jewish muscles, you can somehow avoid atrophy just by what? Lying on the Jewish couch. It's the discipline that counts. The fixing of set time is emphasized because it's a question of priorities. What you do with regularity, you do with commitment. What you leave to when I have time, you end up never having time. There is a veteran congregant here, and now a close friend, who invites me to lunch several times a year. And whenever I see him, he asks me whether I have begun an exercise regimen. So far, he has been as successful in persuading me to do physical exercise as I have been in persuading you to do Jewish exercise. I never have the time. But try again this year, and I will too. Start small. Start slowly. If you have not exercised in years, you can't run a marathon on the first day. Do a few Jewish push-ups. crunch some Judaism. You may actually begin to like it. You will receive a Jewish energy boost that over time, like the gym, you won't be able to do without. We're busy, busier than many fellow Americans. But everybody can find time for what is important to them. I know congregants who travel over 100 days a year and still find time with discipline to study Judaism or to take private Hebrew lessons in their office or halfway around the world through their smartphones. We can help you. We can teach you. We can arrange short classes here before or after work or during the day for those who are caregivers or retired. We can arrange video conferences, conference calls, Skype. We can give you a list of Jewish books, journals, newspapers that you can read at home or on a plane or in your office, anything that makes it easier for you. For adults who have never had a bar or a bat mitzvah, consider taking the 2-year course, which is right now just about ready to start. It'll change your life. Set aside fixed time to think about Judaism, to do Judaism, to reflect on what is important to you and why it is important. And may it be that when all of the evidence is examined and we face our final judgment, that it can be said about us, kavata itim la Torah. We set aside fixed time for Torah. 3, asakta bepriya urvia. Did you engage in procreation? This is the third question that the heavenly court will ask because it flows from the second. The point of knowledge and success is not only to enrich ourselves, but to have a legacy. It's not a question of simple biological procreation in all of its varied and exciting options today. It's not simply a question of adoption, which is itself an act of procreation. Many of us do not have children for many reasons. Many of us cannot have children. Many of the great rabbis and heroes of Judaism did not have children. And in any case, the mere act of procreation is not what counts. Rather, it is the legacy that is left behind and can be borne by the next generation. This is what the sages emphasized. Asakta bepriya urvia. Did you spend time in being fruitful, in being productive, in making a difference? And did you satiate and fill others? Did you produce good fruit and leave something good behind? Or did you only think of yourself? Did you have students? Did you have disciples? Did you have followers and admirers? Were you a role model at home and at work? Did colleagues and peers learn from you? Did they want to be like you? Did you inspire them? Did you spend time sharing your talents, experiences, and gifts with the next generation? Whether your own children or other people's children. Were you a good, diligent, and loving teacher for your own children and other people's children? This is what Judaism means when it speaks of procreation. This is how Jewish tradition understood Abraham and Sarah, who for most of their lives, well into old age, didn't even have children. They brought people to God. And by teaching them this new religious way, it is as if Abraham and Sarah created them. Whoever teaches another, it is as if they have given birth to them, states the Talmud. Thus says the prophet Isaiah, "V'natati lahem beveiti u'v'chomati yad vashem tov mi banim u'banot shem olam eten lo." And lo, God has given them yad vashem, an enduring monument and an eternal name that will not perish, better than sons and daughters. A name that will last forever will I give those who pass a legacy on to others. This is our posterity, a legacy that is passed on to the next generation. We live for ourselves, that's the truth. We live for ourselves, but not only for ourselves. If I am not for myself, no one will be for me, say our sages. But if I am only for myself, what am I? This ancient message is so relevant for modern-day Americans. So much of contemporary life is about me, me, me. So much of contemporary life is about self-awareness, self-help, self-satisfaction, self-enrichment, self-analysis. We have produced elaborate theories to justify selfishness. But the sages remind us, engage in priaurvia, be fruitful, and multiply disciples, whether your own children or other people's children. Inspire people, work to leave something behind, build the next generation. Resist the teachings of contemporary prophets, the oracles of self, who advise us that the moral purpose of our lives is our own happiness, and the values of sharing, helping, supporting, and pitying others is for moral wimps, a corruption of the heroic nature of man. We are deprived of strength when we feel pity, wrote Nietzsche. Religions have preserved too much of what ought to perish. It's Nietzsche's ideas that ought to perish, not the impulse to altruism and compassion. Our own sense of self and our own happiness are important, but they are not the sole moral purpose of our lives. And we are not weakened when we feel another person's pain. We are strengthened. Resolve this year to engage in procreative activities, teaching others, inspiring others, blessing others. And may it be that when all the evidence is gathered and we face our final judgment, that it can be said about us, asacta bepriaurvia. We were creative and procreative. And we lived not only for ourselves, but we inspired the next generation that took the torch. 4. Tzipita liyeshua. Did you hope for salvation? Did you expect that it will all make sense in the end? This is the final question that the heavenly court will ask because it is the natural culmination of all the others. Did you live your life with the hope that there is more to life than what you see? Are we only molecules, only a coincidental collection of chemical compounds? Are we only the most highly evolved creature in the animal kingdom? Or do we also think, what is man that you are mindful of us? What are we that you have regard for us? You have made us little less than divine and adorned us with glory and majesty. You have made us master of your handiwork. When we look to the night sky, do we see only balls of hydrogen and helium gas held together by gravity, or do we also think, behold the heavens, the work of your hand, the moon and the stars that you placed in the sky? Trust your instincts. Trust your impulse. Fight the cynicism of the age, this dreary, deathly determinism that eclipses all wonder, awe, and amazement. You've heard the story of the Upper West Side, upper middle class couple who sent their child to the Trinity School? The parents were militant and vocal atheists. About a month after the child begins, he comes home and he casually says to his father, by the way, Dad, do you know what the word Trinity means? It means the trio of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The father, barely restraining himself, grabs the boy by the shoulders and says, son, there is only one God and we do not believe in him. Sipita Lishua. With all of our modern science, philosophy, analytical rigor, and with all of our questions and our doubts, nonetheless, did we live with the hope for salvation? According to Jewish tradition, when the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, some of them only looked down at the seafloor, and all they saw was mud and muck. And it reminded them of the slave pits of Egypt. Here they were, in the middle of the great deliverance, and all they could think about was slavery. But the tradition points out that others looked up, and because they looked up, they saw salvation, the glory of God. Do you only look down in the mud and the muck and the dirt of existence? Do you feel like a hopeless slave to your circumstances? Or do you also cast your eye to the heavens? And there, perhaps, catch a glimpse of salvation. That second star to the right and straight on till morning. Our earthly days are brief. 70 years and 10, and for those who are especially blessed, 80 years or a bit more. It all goes by in the blink of an eye. Yesterday, she was born. Today, she is 20. Look up. Live your life with the hope for salvation. Hope that there is more to this world than what we see. Live every day as if the source of life breathed into you the breath of life. The poet Samuel Coleridge wrote this in one of his unpublished notebooks. If a man could pass through paradise in a dream and have a flower presented to him as a pledge that his soul had really been there, and if he found that flower in his hand when he awoke, what then? What then? Psychiatrists would tell us that we are psychotic. Freudians would tell us that the flower is symbolic of our repressed Oedipus complex. Professional magicians would reveal how the magic was done. Professional cynics would accuse us of making it all up or never growing up, still hostage to childish ideas. And after a while, we ourselves might begin to doubt our own nature. We might throw the wilted flower into the trash heap, or it would gather dust and wither away in the basement of our lives. Understand this about life. We cannot come back with a flower. We cannot prove salvation. It's not mathematics. It is a feeling, an intuition, a power, a force. That's why the rabbis are clear. Tzipita lishua. Did you hope for salvation? Not did you prove the existence of God under some general scientific theory of everything. But did you live with a sense of mystery? Or was it all beaten out of you by cynical, self-satisfied snobs? Sophisticated rhetoricians inebriated with the exuberance of their own verbosity, who themselves worship at the altar of the goddess of reason, incanting the liturgy of science through wishful theories that they believe can explain it all. It takes a heart of stone, a cold heart, a heart colder than mine, to conclude with such divine confidence that all is godless randomness. But since they can no more prove their hypothesis than I can mine, I am content to live with the hope and the expectation of salvation, and wait to discover the truth at the heavenly tribunal. If they were right, and there is no there, I've lost nothing. I won't even know the difference. But if I was right, then, as J.M. Barrie wrote in Peter Pan, to die will be an awfully big adventure. These then are the questions we will be asked at the completion of our earthly trials. Did you have financial integrity? Did you set aside fixed time for study, reflection, and Jewish life? Did you engage in procreative activities? Did you hope for salvation? May it be that when all the evidence is examined and we face our final judgment, that God seals the verdict with eternal life. Amen.